Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Stately Office Hours. This is where us, the team at Stately, update you on everything that is going on with Stately and with XState. Thank you so much for joining us live. As ever, we really appreciate it. If you have any questions for us about Stately, about XState, about how you're using state machines, please let us know. You can comment live on the events if you are watching on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or on Twitch, and we can answer your questions here in the live stream or in the comments. Or we can direct you to a good place to get some help. Let's start off as we do most weeks, and that is by introducing ourselves. I'm Laura, and I do advocacy and education for Stately. David?
Hey, I'm David, founder of Stately, creator of XState.
And Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin. I've been doing engineering at Stately.
Farzad?
Hey, I'm Farzad, and I do engineering at Stately too.
And finally, Nick.
And I'm Nick, and I do design and engineering and such at Stately.
So we have a great variety of the team here today, and I'm pretty sure that there will be a few more of them lurking in the comments. So we have a huge amount of stuff that we have been previewing or even adding on the slide to Stately recently. So we wanted to go through some of that today. We don't really have time to cover absolutely everything. We're going to try and get through as much as we can. Starting off with a really great little usability enhancement that Kevin has been working on. Kevin, what happens now when you go to create a new machine?
Lots of stuff. Anything you want to happen will happen. Let me just present my screen here for a second.
The browser UI for this could be so much better. It's always tricky to work out which screen you're going to share.
Yeah.
Is it a tab? Is it a window? Is it a screen?
Okay, I think I have it.
Here we go.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Okay, everyone sees my screen?
There we go. We can see your screen.
Okay,
It's pretty
excellent.
zoomed out, so just so you know.
Yeah, we can zoom in here. Okay, so this is a project, Stately Studio, and let's say up until now, there's been different ways to create machines, and we've also given you sort of different starting points for new machines and things like that. So we have a slightly different approach, and I think it's going to really help here. One of the goals was to make it even faster for people to make machines, and another thing was to make it very clear, like, what kind of starting point do you want to work from? Because some people, you have something already in mind, maybe you already have code, maybe you really don't know what you want to do, and you just want to kind of start with a blank slate, all this sort of thing. So what we did is we came up with a way. I was Nick, was working on the sort of the usability and the design of this to create a starting point for creating machines. And the first thing I want to show you actually is this state machine. So at Stately, as you can imagine, we also use the state machines and the flows here in the video to create the features of the video itself, as you know. And so what we have here is this modal. So that means that we're going to see this all happening in a modal. And basically, I'm not going to run through every little detail here, but when the modal is opened, you're going to be able to choose the style of a machine that you want to create. And then once
Could you
do that,
zoom in a little bit, Kevin, just so we can read the text a bit easier?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me, Laura. So, for example, once we open this modal, when we're open state, we're going to be choosing machine style. And then depending on that style, we can either create a machine immediately. Maybe we need to get a little extra information from you, the user, in order to tell us exactly what kind of machine you need. And then there's some other stuff that goes on here too, just to help you out. So this is the machine for that. So what does that look like as a feature? So, and by the way, this is already in production. So this is already live. So now if I go over here, I can click new machine, and I get this modal, and I can make a machine from a blank canvas or from the starter template. I can also import code, and I can generate with AI. And it's telling me here that that this is in a private project. Private, of course, is a project visibility. That's one of our pro features. But it may be in a public project. And so basically, if I open this modal and I click blank canvas, you immediately get the blank canvas. Some of you may recognize this machine. So we're nostalgic. So we gave you back your old two-state machine to start you off. It's sort of, your closest thing to the blank slate. Now, if I want to go here and let's say I want to start a template, I can click that there, and now I get this template. And so it's actually very, very fast to create, any type of machine like this. Now, another option that I could do is I could also come over here. Let's say I had another machine and it wasn't this one, but it could be this one. And I go over here and I click on import code. I can just drop the code in there, hit create, and now I get. That's interesting. That created different. Okay, well, there may be a bug there. So
inventing machine for you.
That is interesting. I've never seen that before. So anyway, but you can create a machine. You can actually type create machine in there. You can drop your JSON, your TypeScript, or your JavaScript, what have you. And then finally, the last option is you can go in here and you can do generate from AI, and you can paste in anything you want here. Actually, one thing I can do is I have sort of like this description that I pre-baked here, but of course you can type in anything you want. So let's say I want to describe a machine that looks kind of like this machine. So let's see what happens here. So.
While we're
Okay,
waiting for it, you zoom in a touch. There we go.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So
let's zoom in a little further.
Yeah, so this produced a machine, which actually, let's see. So we have, okay, so this is description based on the description of the other machine you saw. And you can kind of see here that I think it's actually looking pretty good. You can start out by choosing machine style. You can choose a style. You end up with the machine created. You could also, let's see, okay. You can choose a style that takes you to a form, and then you can create the machine. We also have this project visibility stuff here. So this actually did a pretty good job of creating the machine that we saw before.
Yeah, it's quite simplified, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of similar. And so what else? Yeah, and one thing that you'll notice also is that a lot of the UI here has been somewhat redesigned and improved, and there's a lot of different enhancements. So for example, we have these panels here where you can see the structure of your machine. You can also navigate the project. And also another thing is that you can get to this from going here to new machine from here. And let's see, I think that's, oh yes, and if you happen to have an empty project, then you can also get to it from the, from on the canvas. There's a button there. And so this is basically the new modal for creating.
The tabs for the events and states and context and tests and code are also a new style there. I think that's been new since we last had an office hours as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lara. Thank you. And also, that is a great segue to what I can also move on to show a little bit of. So that is basically how to create a machine very quickly in Studio. Yeah. So I'll pause there for a sec. And then moving on to these tabs that you mentioned. So this is where you can actually see the details of the machine. We have events, we have the event schema, which is also new. Here you can see details of your context. I'm not using any context in this particular one really, except for this one.
Could you zoom the browser a bit, Kevin? You've got such a big screen that it's hard to fit it all into the video. There we go.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So this is actually I did import this. So I do have this with a context key value here. So there's a schema for that. And then there's the code panel, which we've seen before in the past. So you can copy the code. You can export to other editors. You can get different formats. You can produce Markdown and Mermaid and other things. But there is this other new tab here, which I think we're going to see a lot more discussion of in the future, but I just want to kind of show it very briefly right now. And this is tests. This is actually for automatically generating tests or test paths and actually producing real test code that you can then fill out and use in your project. So for example, we have at the top here a few different settings that you can tweak. So you can choose either like a shortest path strategy or a normal path, and you can read a little bit more about the difference there. What else? You can also choose to like deduplicate paths. So you potentially could get paths that actually are subsets of other paths. So it's a little bit redundant, whereas you can actually reduce that if you're not interested in all the granularity. You can prefer transition coverage, which will ensure that you've actually covered all of the transitions, not just the states that are in your flows. We can also do AI-generated titles, which is cool, and things like this. So why don't I just start by generating some of these here? Okay, so what this did is, yeah, this is cool. So let me just, okay, we can also, another thing is you can resize, which is very nice by dragging them. That's convenient. And here are the different tests. Now, right now I have highlight paths selected. So as I actually hover over them, you can see that the paths themselves are being highlighted with this color. And that helps to sort of identify them in addition to their more wordy descriptions here. And then what you can do is if you open up one of these, then you're going to see that underneath the description, you actually have all of the granular steps of the flow itself, starting with the states, and then the next event that takes you to the subsequent state, et cetera, until you get to the end. And there's also a code panel here with actual test code. By the way, it's also worth noting that you can tweak the format of the code for different, I guess I'm going to regenerate, it tells me the tests are outdated, so I'm just going to regenerate this. You can actually tweak that, for, let's say, Playwright or for other things, and I'm sure we can add other things in the future for compatibility. But in here, you actually can see, and I'll just open this up a bit more. You can actually see that we have all of these different tests here, and they're awaiting all of these steps, which are the steps for you to actually implement the assertions that you need to test that your application doing what it needs to do. So all that is kind of contained up here in the sort of setup for the code test. So basically, there are roughly 3 parts to this panel. And again, I'm not going to go into great detail here because we're going to, we'll have a lot more to say about all the details and best practices and things. But roughly speaking, in setup, you have a sort of start function, which you can do actual setup. And then there's an area where you can assert on states. So you can say, in this state, I need to make sure that this is on the page, and this looks like this, and this is enabled, and this is visible. And then there's another thing called the execute event. And this is where you're going to basically simulate the user gestures that would essentially send events to the state machine in order to transition to your different states. And so all of the implementation will be kind of mixed in with this code that you can copy, and you can put that into your file. Whereas all of the flows of the different, the test coverage by the flows are auto-generated for you. So it's an interesting way to help your tests scale along with your application, because all of that scaling of the flows is done in an automated way, whereas the actual part that you need to implement, which you need to implement anyway, is the assertions on the states and the implementation of user gestures. So anyway, so before getting too much in the weeds of that, I guess I'll pause there, and I don't know if there are any questions about that.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's so exciting. I think this is probably a good time for me to say that if you do have any formats that you'd like to be able to export your test to that we don't support yet, you can put in a feedback request. If I find the URL for my banner, there we go. At feedback.stately.ai, you can let us know on one of the boards in there which formats you'd like to output to, and we can see what we can do about that.
Yeah, and to really emphasize one of the things that's so cool about what you can do now, and like what Kevin just showed, is what you saw was you could generate this machine from AI, just from a set of requirements, and that gives you a starting point for your logic. And then you can generate tests for that machine, which gives you a starting point for writing the tests. And so you're jumping past a lot of the mundane tasks, and you're getting right into the kind of the more exciting, perhaps, or difficult, or particular part of the work. So yeah, it's a real boost.
Yeah, let the AI do the repetitive work and let you do the stuff that requires the thinking.
Hmm. And by the way, these are paths, so they don't necessarily need to be test paths. You could use them for anything, such as browser automation in the future. So
Yeah, it'd be really handy to plug that into the automated screenshot feature that Playwright has as well, if you want to be able
Yeah.
to take screenshots for your docs or something like that.
mhm.
I don't know if you noticed, but I actually did turn on the AI generated titles, and it gave me much nicer looking titles for these paths. And I should just mention that actually I did this exact flow, and all of this, the feature, we've actually written tests based on this, and it's pretty interesting to work with, and really a lot of fun. So
Yeah, it's great. When things work well for us, we know that we can recommend them to everyone else, that's for sure.
all right.
So, next up, David, do you want to tell us some exciting new things that have been added to XState with the Setup API?
Yeah, sure. And just to be clear, these are things that are going to be added. We are working on it now. Mateusz is working on the PR, but it is something that I did talk about on Twitter. And I do have like a small proof of concept to show you. So hopefully the screen is big enough.
Looks lovely.
Yeah. So one of the problems with doing things in in V4 especially, but sort of in V5 too, was you might have different actor logic. Like this is from a promise, and right now I'm just this is just reading from the console. Like give me a topic, and we're waiting for a result. We know that this is going to be a string. Like this promise is, returning a string. But you had to basically set it up in the types over here and say something like actors blah as, and then we have the source is something, and then the logic is something else, and that's actually a bit of boilerplate. So instead we proposed an API called Setup, and not much changes, and this is a completely opt-in API. So let's say that we have our some implementations here like get joke completion, rates joke, and get topic. So instead, we could call the setup function, which is not in XState V5 yet, but it will be hopefully this month. And you pass in your actors as is to that, or your actor logic rather. So we have get joke completion, get topic, and rates joke. And so now this will autocomplete for you. So if we wanted to invoke, we have a source. Now I have a choice of 3 to choose from. And so on top of that, my events are strongly typed. So events.output, we could see that this is a string. And so with that, it makes it a lot easier to use or to provide implementations for state machines. And in this example, what I'm doing is, I can't show the code fully on the screen just because there's a bunch of code, but I could open the visual editor, and this again will probably be updated soon. And I'll just show you the structure here. So I have a little, let's call it an agent over here. And this agent's job is to tell a joke and then, or to wait for a topic, tell the joke, and then rate itself. So while waiting for a topic, once it gets it, it's going to tell a joke. And then once it's done telling the joke, it's actually going to rate itself. And then after the joke is rated, after 2 seconds, since it likes to be a jokester, it's going to wait for more jokes. So let's see that working. Just have a little bit of fun this Friday. Give me a topic, any topic.
Chicken.
Chicken.
I'm thinking classic joke topic.
All right, chicken. Anything special with the chicken? We could really, this is AI. We could make it do anything.
Now I can only think of really dull chicken things.
You know what?
We could do the classic of dull chicken things.
we're literally going to do dull chicken things. Okay. So it's telling the joke. It's sitting open the AI. Why did the chicken go to comedy school? Because it wanted to spice up its foul sense of humor.
That's a good joke. That is not bad. It's more of a read joke rather than a speak joke, but it's not a bad joke.
Right. And then it rates itself. So it does, like, you could think of this as prompt chaining, except without having to learn LangChain. I mean, you could just use a state machine and use the normal OpenAI APIs for this. It said I would rate this joke as a 6. It's not particularly exceptional or memorable. It's funny.
But it's a punny and light-hearted joke that may elicit a chuckle. I love that.
Yeah. Let's do end-to-end testing. I wonder if it'll tell a joke about that. Why was the end-to-end test always overworked? Because it was always under a lot of pressure. That's not really funny, but
It tried. Okay, what's it going to
It-
rate it?
Oops, I exited out of it, but I would give that a 0 out of 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is the upcoming setup API, and it makes things a lot easier. So speaking of AI, I want to preview just a couple of experiments that we've been working on. Here, let me just go ahead.
While you're
and
setting
share.
that up, Joseph says, I'm very excited about the progress in XState v5 and the visual editor. Thanks, Joseph. There's so much coming very quickly at the moment. We've been having a lot's been worked on in the last few weeks, and yeah, it is wild how quickly all the updates are coming out.
Yeah, let me go ahead and zoom into this. Can you see this just fine?
Yeah, looks great.
All right, cool. So we have a classics turnstile machine here, and I want to demonstrate a few features with this. Actually, we're missing a transition, so I'm just going to click suggest transition over there and see what it does.
Ooh.
Cool, we have push suggested that transition for us, which was missing. Thanks, AI.
Classic state machine example there.
Yes. So we do have generate from current flow and things like that. But honestly, AI could be just really useful throughout the entire process of creating, working on the machine, deploying a machine, etc. And one thing in particular that we really wanted to do for a long time was provide summaries of machines, like basically for accessible text, like alt text and things like that. And so actually, this is funny because one of the regulars, or used to be a regular here, Eric Rasmussen, who is still very fond of state machines. I actually showed him the article, which if you go to stately.ai/blog, we have an article, What is a State Machine? And the original state machine here was actually a turnstile made by Laura, but Eric gave pushback and he's like, hey, this is not the most relatable example. Not everyone knows.
Nobody uses a coin turnstile anymore.
Exactly. And he's like, we would have to explain it to people. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But at least now, if we did want to use a turnstile, we could generate a summary. And so this will take the machine, try to understand it, and it will come up with that summary here. This state machine represents a turnstile, which is a device used to control access to a restricted area. And then it talks about the mechanics of it, like when a coin event is received, it transitions to the unlock state and it does all that. So it describes it in very human terms, and this is extremely useful for documentation. So if you have something more complex, it's able to document that and have it easily digestible to even non-technical people too, because that's basically how we shaped these prompts so that they produce something that the entire team can understand, which is our overall goal.
I've literally been saying for the last 2 years, it'd be so cool to be able to have alt text generated for our state machines. And this is great because I spend a huge amount of time posting state machines on social media. And when I have those images, I want to make them accessible, and having this alt text. And it's one thing to have the export to Markdown, which is a great way of having the real specifics and the requirements for your machine. But this is much more human readable and much friendlier. Nobody wants to read sort of just a list of states and transitions. This explains it so nicely.
Right. Yeah. And I think that honestly, the general direction we're moving to is that we want all of your app logic to be more understandable. And having it as a visual diagram is just one step towards getting there. Using AI, we could even do a lot more with that. And it doesn't even have to be a state machine, I actually have a tab open here, getting started with Redux, that I was reading. A lot of people ask, like, should I use Redux or XState, etc. And honestly, we want our tool to be a tool for everyone. This is the quickest example I could find. I had like 5 minutes before I jumped on the stream. But over here, there's a counter reducer example. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. And imagine if you could actually import the reducer. By the way, excuse my terrible UI over here. But I'm just going to paste that reducer into here and import the reducer. So this is not a state machine. It is actually coming from Redux. And what we have is we have the exact same event names and we have the assigned values. And you could see in the code, it does convert that to XState. It is possible in the future to convert this back to Redux, like if you want to make any more modifications to this. But yeah, that's that's converting.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was one more experimental feature. Man, I'm trying to find this. There was a state machine over here where it actually had things where it felt like finite states, but it wasn't exactly finite states. I don't know if I could find it now, but that's okay. Basically, that there is the ability to say, hey, this thing might have finite states, so arrange it as if there were states and transitions and things like that. But that's a demo for another time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll keep showing folks these cool demos, and hopefully soon that this will be features that you'll be able to use. That's so exciting. Oh, great. Does anyone else have anything that they wanted to add this week? I feel like we've already blown plenty of minds. Martin says, I'm going to import all the use effect.
It'll work. It'll work.
We've got some events coming up. Next week, if you are a local to Orlando, there is an Orlando JS meetup happening, and you're going to be doing a bit of a hack night, aren't you, David?
Yes. So me and Jenny, we're hosting a hack night, which is sort of a mini hackathon. Basically, we're going to, just have everyone come around and make state machines with Stately. And, since it's only a hack night, we only have a few hours. We don't have enough time to teach all of XState or anything like that. We're going to be using AI generation to really help people make whatever they could think of and export it to code and make working applications in just really a few minutes.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I wish that the rest of us weren't so far away.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of being far away, next week I will be speaking at NodeConf EU. It's a very last minute surprise. I'm speaking there next Wednesday, and one of the reasons I'm able to do so is because it is so close to my house. Which, I mean, when I moved to Kilkenny, I never realized there would ever be an event like this in Kilkenny. So it's quite exciting to be able to go to something so local. And if you are going to be at NodeConf, please let me know. I will certainly have a lot of stickers and other goodies that I can share with you all. And also towards the end of the month, so this will be the 23rd, 24th of November, I will be at Web, and that's sold out now. So if you have got a ticket, let us know, because you'll be able to come hang out with Kevin as well, because it's local to Kevin. So if you want to come hang out with two of the coolest members of the Stately team, no shade to the rest of you, then please let us know if you're going to be there. It would be lovely to meet you. Oh, good question. So Joseph asks, what's the best way to sync machines from a dev environment with the visual editor?
That is a great question, because it is a feature that we are nearing completion on, and this feature is going to be called GitHub Sync. And so the idea is that you might have a repository with machines inside of it, and you would want to maybe edit it in the visual editor. And currently, the way that people are doing this is they're essentially copy pasting code back and forth from the visual editor, or they're using the VS Code extension, which right now is a little bit outdated. And of course, you have to use VS Code. You can't use WebStorm, at least not yet with that. So with GitHub Sync, it gives you the ability to edit your code either in whichever environment you're most comfortable in, like VS Code or WebStorm, or edit the visual diagrams in the editor on the web. So you could go to stately.ai, log on to your team, edit it there, and it will make a pull request on your behalf. And also when you update it in code, it will go the other way around, and you will be able to see the latest changes visually. We've had Kevin and Honors working really, really hard on that, and we can't wait to show it off to you.
100%. Yeah,
And
Joseph
one
says,
thing,
I am
I mean,
indeed copy pasting.
copy paste is fine.
Kevin's frozen.
Oh, Kevin's breaking up a little bit. Sorry, Kevin. Your internet has decided that it doesn't want to play with us. What I also wanted to mention is with the GitHub sync as well, we do have GitLab and other ways of using Git in mind for the future. We know that a lot of people are using GitHub. So if you're one of the folks who's using something else, please let us know on our feedback board at feedback.stately.ai. We'd love to know what you're using and what would make Stately easy for you to use.
Mm-hmm.
And Cedric missed the office hours due to a meeting. Well, here's a reminder that you can always catch up with any of our office hours. We will always have the videos stored on both LinkedIn and on YouTube. And so if you want to watch them later on, you're welcome to do that. I think you can also get them on Twitter as well. It's just contained in a tweet, which can be a little bit ephemeral.
Mm-hmm.
Cedric asks, do you have a sync with Azure DevOps?
If there's enough demand for it, we will, but not at the moment.
There you go. Martin asks, is there a way to generate some sort of React component template from machine definition code to use alongside the use machine hook?
This is something I was actually working on late last night. It's something that I hope to have prepared for the hackathon, just because I want it to be really easy for someone to go to Stately Studio, generate a machine using AI, tweak it however they'd like, and then generate React code from that, and use a template so that it actually generates like maybe a component for each stage or something like that, and also an easy way to handle each event. So that it becomes effortless to create prototypes or just even the start of a full application using Stately Studio. So that's something I'll probably be working on, early next week or even today. So yeah, just be on the lookout for it.
Great. The idea of just getting us from zero to full application logic working and implemented inside of your code as quickly as possible. Oh, Martin says, oh, there we go. We have been tinkering with the same idea yesterday. Great minds think alike, eh?
Yeah. And talk to me. I'd love to hear your ideas. And yeah.
Well, I think we've lost Kevin altogether. So maybe
He's
that's a
become a
good
spinner.
time to wrap up. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us for our office hours this week. Thank you for coming in live and asking questions and giving us your feedback. We really appreciate all of you that take the time to be here with us. And thank you to all of you who are watching later on as well. We'll be back very soon with another office hours. Keep an eye on our socials for when that may be. But I'm thinking probably a couple of weeks' time. I think that would be fun. And we hope to see you all then. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.